welcome back to my channel. Today we had Jackson's evaluation with the school district, and Kelly was there for a lot of it, not all of it, and so since he's home from work, I asked him to be in the video. He so graciously complied.
Of course.
Anyway, so basically what we did today was we took him to an elementary school, and they have psychiatrists. Is that what they are? Psychiatrists, psychologists?
I don't know.
She's a doctor.
I don't know exactly what they're called, actually.
One of those for special...
Behavioral specialists.
Sure. And so we went to, one of the people that was there was a speech pathologist, and one was behavioral psychologist.
Person. Doctor. And they asked us like a whole bunch of questions at first about speech and about his behavior, if he reacts to you when you say his name, if he looks you in the eye, you know, the typical cliche autism and behavioral questions. They asked about his language. They asked, you know, does he understand this? Does he respond this way? Does he... What else? Just a bunch of questions for us, mostly.
Yeah, but about Jaxon, like what kind of questions about Jaxon?
They had a bunch of, so it was, they had a whole section on speech, and then another section on like nonverbal communication, a whole section on how does he play with others, section... He doesn't. He doesn't, necessarily. It's not that he plays bad, he just doesn't play.
Oh, I ran out of memory on my camera, so we had to restart. But
yeah, like I was saying, it's not like he doesn't play with... It's not like he plays badly with other kids. He just doesn't play with kids. He doesn't really like if they're around him, he just kind of... He
doesn't push them away, and he doesn't hate being... Yeah, he doesn't hate being around them. And actually, I watched him today. They took him outside for recess. Actually, I guess it was actual recess because they're in school. They took them outside for recess, and there were some other kids there, and they went inside that little that playhouse. And, you know, a kid would take something away from him, and he would just kind of be like, okay, like, he's very, not so much with Maddox, but in general with other kids, he's very patient, and he's very, like, he acknowledges that they're there, he just doesn't care. He's not interested in them. He doesn't need to play with other kids or you to have fun. So we talked about that, which was a big part of what they were trying to observe. It's why he went to recess in the first place. And then after recess, we came inside, and he stayed in the first room where we did all the questions. He stayed in there with Maddox, because we had to bring Maddox along too. And then I went in a different room with the two people that we mentioned and Jaxon, and they had all of these toys on the floor, and they told me not to prompt him in any way, like not ask him to do anything, not put anything in his face. They wanted to observe where he went and what he played with and how he played with them. If he brought it to me and wanted me to interact with it, then I could. Like, I didn't have to, like, you know, ignore him, but I wasn't allowed to prompt him into doing anything that I wanted him to do. He had to, you know, take the reins. And so there was a bunch of different toys, I don't know, and they just wanted to see how he interacted, I guess. I'm not really sure what they were going for there. But then they started introducing more things, like they brought out a remote control car, which he loved. I wish I could have been able to film him with that remote control car. It was so funny. They put it backwards toward him, and he would just scream and run away and laugh, and he thought it was so fun. And so he loved that one. The problem was, though, they kept introducing new things like bubbles, and they blew up a balloon and then let it fall. And he wasn't nearly as interested in those because he kept trying to get the remote control car back. She put it in a suitcase, and he knew it was in there. He's very smart. He knows where you put it, and so he kept like dragging her or dragging me over to the suitcase, or just trying to get into the suitcase to get that car out. That's what he wanted to play with. So he didn't change his focus very well, which is something that they acknowledged. If he was playing with it or playing with anything really, and they like called his name, he didn't respond. They asked me to do it, and he still didn't really respond even when I was calling his name. They tried to get like a social smile. They're like, do something to make him smile, and he wasn't really in the mood. They said, you know, if he won't, then you can tickle him. So I did, and that makes him smile because he's very ticklish. But he just wasn't really responding to them and wasn't responding to the toys that they wanted him to respond to. Not so much like they didn't need him to play with them to like test his intelligence, but like when he found the cars, that's all he cared about. That's all he cared about. It didn't matter what else they pulled out, what toys they wanted him to play with. He wasn't gonna play with them because he wanted to play with the cars, and that's all he cared about. So that was kind of rough. But they sang the happy birthday song. They had a little toy baby that they brought out, and they like made a cake out of Play-Doh, and he would stick the candles into the Play-Doh, and he tried to like feed the baby, which was good. But then he just threw the baby behind him. So I was like, oh look, he'd be good with the baby. Never mind. Yeah, maybe not yet. So, but then he sang the happy birthday song, and he really liked that they sang the birthday song, and then he wouldn't stop singing the birthday song. And then when we asked him to clean up, he sang the cleanup song and kind of helped clean up a little bit. It was like a wooden log thing, and they wanted him to pretend it was a car, and he was just not interested in that. He's like, that's not a car.
That's not a car.
There's no wheels. They said there were a lot of toys that they gave him that he interacted with exactly the way that he was supposed to, which is good, but just lack of communication. Do you remember what she said when she came back and she was talking about what they were looking for and didn't see? Or
they said the social smile was one of them, and they had mentioned about when he was playing outside.
Yeah, he wasn't playing with the other kids.
I can't remember other than that though. I think that was those are the two that stuck out to me. I was also chasing Maddox around a little bit, so I missed some of that. But
next Wednesday, I'm going in and we're having something called the ARD meeting, which is basically when we're going to go over the course of action, like their findings. We're going to get a report early next week before the ARD meeting where they tell us everything that they found, where it should have been and where he wasn't, what they're kind of concerned about. And then the ARD meeting is, like I said, like the course of action. So they're gonna say like what they think is best for him. But we do get to say, like if we say, oh, I think it's better if he goes every day of the week instead of only 3, they will take that into consideration and they'll work with that. If they offer transportation and I say don't think he could do well like on the way to school, but on the way back, then they'll take that into consideration. They're very into the idea of like, mother knows best, she knows the kid best. That meeting is when we're gonna go over like how many days of the week, transportation, if he gets speech and how he gets speech, what classes should he be in, should he be in classes with just special needs kids, or should he be like in a mixed class or just class with, you know, typical kids. That's what we're gonna go over next week. But she did say that they know that he qualifies in the first place to go to school, and that did she say qualifies for autism education?
Something like that. It was like he meets the requirements for getting into the program because of the symptoms they look for autism.
Yeah.
She didn't necessarily come out and say, yes, he has autism, but I think that we always kind of knew that he was probably on the spectrum.
Yeah.
But yeah, and it's just, I feel like mostly for us, at least for me, I'm not going to talk for you, but for me, it's one of those things where I don't really care about the label necessarily, or what
I just care about other people and their thoughts on the label. Like, I'm worried about putting this autism label on him and then other people have assumptions about my kid that aren't true. That's what bothers me. Like, I don't care about the label. It's other people put a lot of focus on the label, and I don't like that. I don't like that you suddenly know everything about my kid. You know how he's going to react. You know what he likes and doesn't like. You know that every tantrum he has is because of autism. Like, you don't get to just blanket diagnose my kid just because you know he has autism or he's on the spectrum. Like, the autism spectrum is huge. And so that's what you were saying, is that you think that she more or less said, what did you say, like, it means he has like enough symptoms?
Yeah, it means that they found for the things they're looking for, he met the basic requirements for them to really get him early intervention and get him help.
Yeah. As far as autism goes.
And you know, the preschool type stuff, and which is good. I think that's what he also qualified for the speech stuff too.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's really, I think honestly that ends up being a good thing, a positive note on both. And if, you know, with their stuff, they need to have him be have that label, then I'd rather just get him help than worry about the labels and stuff. But I mean,
that's what she said too. She's like, you know, we don't really like labels, but we're giving him a little bit of one so that he can get the help that he needs. Not so much like, oh, this kid has autism. It's more like, this kid has symptoms of autism, and so he needs help, and we're going to get him the help because of that autism diagnosis.
And even, it almost seemed like it was like, well, we don't, you know, it wasn't necessarily like you said, it wasn't like he needs, or he has autism. It was, this child needs help before he hits school. He needs like more of an early intervention, and, you know, if we have to put the autism label on him, whether it be for the state or whatever, then that's our avenue of doing this.
Yeah.
Not saying.
And he qualifies enough to get that label so that they can give it to him for free, so that he can qualify for the program.
And even if he does, you know, even if he's on the spectrum, I don't, for us, for especially, that doesn't really matter too much to us as far as like, because we understand that he's like the same kid regardless of what diagnoses or labels or anything like that. But that is a fair concern you have, where, you know, the outside perception of other people when they hear he's on the spectrum or he has autism, they automatically go to whatever they have had, whether it be in movies or whether they see in their own life. So that doesn't necessarily...
They've met one person with severe autism, and then they think that, you know, my kid on the spectrum is exactly like that. Like, it's just such a blanket term. You know, like, this is a blessing, and that's something that I have to, like, remind myself is, like, Jaxon gets to go to school, and he gets to have this advantage, and we don't have to worry about whether or not we can afford it, and we don't have to, you know, strain ourselves financially or anything like that, because they are going to provide it for him, and that's a blessing. Like, we've looked at all kinds of therapies, we've looked at all kinds of preschools, we've looked at all kinds of things, and they're expensive, which I find ridiculous, because, like, sorry, my kid has issues, and I need to pay for it, like, to get him help.
In the sensory gyms and stuff like that, and I get it, like, they have to charge enough so they can pay for all the things, but it's just still to make it any easier for us to pay for it. Yeah,
and it's expensive. And so, you know, he might not be getting everything that he could possibly get. Like, we'd love to put him in a sensory gym, and with an occupational therapist that could take him to a sensory gym. That is just expensive, though. Like, we can't afford that, and this is a really great opportunity because they have occupational therapists at the school, they have speech therapists at the school, they have a lot of the things that Jaxon is going to need to help get him where he should be for his age by just going to school. And they don't need to take him to a different doctor appointment. We don't have to go to 5 different doctor's appointments a week because... Are you okay?
Yeah, I was yawning, and so now it looks like I'm crying all of a sudden, but...
We just love him so much.
I mean, obviously, but...
Yeah.
It's weird.
It was just a lot. I don't like evaluation days. I don't like going into a room knowing that they're specifically looking for things that are wrong with my kid. Like, I just don't like that. But they were really amazing, and they really seemed to see Jaxon as a whole, and then said, like, okay, what can we help him with, instead of like, what can we fix, and they were just really amazing. And they didn't give a super, like, when I walk away from our evaluations with speech therapists, like, I didn't have as much of that feeling today. After the ARD meeting, I might not feel as good, because we're going to walk into a room with the expectation that they're going to tell us everything wrong with our kid, but the whole point is to figure out how best to help Jaxon. That's the whole point with all of this, is what can we do to help Jaxon, what can we do to make his life easier, our lives easier, have him succeed later on in life, so that this isn't even an issue, so that when he's, you know, looking at colleges, we're not even thinking, oh, hey, remember how you were developmentally delayed? Like,
and I think the whole thing today, like, the reason you had that you didn't come out of it feeling the way you did previously, is because it felt more like this is a meeting for us to all try and figure out what's best for Jaxon, what we can do to help him, and you came out with a little bit more of a solid, like, plan, as opposed to, and I think that'll happen with the ARD meeting as well, that's a hope, as opposed to going in and all you get is not really a plan of how to fix anything or go
just
forward.
Like, but he doesn't do this, and he should do this, and he doesn't do that, and he should, and, you know, I tried to get him to do this, and he wouldn't. Like, those just make me mad.
Yeah, that's fair.
So this one wasn't so much like that. They really talked to Jaxon like a person, and they really
And they just got excited for him, you know, like they're like, you know, you definitely qualify, Jaxon. We're so excited to play with you some more. Like they were just sweet and they just wanted to play with him and they were very patient and it was just a good feeling overall. It was still just hard to, it's very humbling to take your kid in and have, that's the purpose, is for people to look at what he should be doing and he's not. So anyway, after the art meeting, we'll have a little bit of an idea of what we will be doing from this point on, and that will be a little bit more of an update of what to expect as far as like Jaxon going to school and all that stuff. This was just more or less what we got out of today. But yeah, thank you for watching. Thank you for visiting, and we'll see you in the next one. Say bye.
Bye.
Bye.